Hello, Coach Carol here, talking about physical clutter. It's a good time to talk about physical clutter because most of us, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, are still by and large in our homes. We're not spending quite as much time outdoors. So it's a beautiful time to really take a look around our homes as it gets a little bit brighter and nicer out because we want to make sure that we're ready to go outdoors. We're ready to feel free and not guilty around, doing that. And also, too, it helps us be more productive and happy in our homes, in our offices, when we are indoors, to really have it be as clutter free as possible. Okay, so I have three basic things to relate to you today regarding physical clutter and some of the pitfalls that I see my clients run into. The first one is starting. Sometimes it's just so overwhelming. You know you need to do a certain project regarding cleaning up, decluttering, but boy, it just feels incredibly overwhelming, and that could be for a lot of reasons, right? So it could be just that if you've got a home and the whole thing is in clutter, not just your home office, but really so much of it, it's like, where do you even start? So you find yourself procrastinating, you find yourself, being on Facebook. Here we are on Facebook, but you find yourself being on Facebook and you find yourself going out of your home, being too busy to, do these things. It's overwhelming. So that's number one, just the physical, how do you get started? The next thing that can be a problem, and this is if you're maybe more self-aware, is that there could be a lot of voices in your head saying, why bother? It always just comes back to this anyhow. Or, you're not meant to be organized. All different things like that. These voices that come into your head, or you will never catch up anyways. You've got this backpack just full of, client files that you'll never catch up with. So why should you even bother doing it? Those are the things that are coming in on getting started. So what I'll say to that is that when something is too big, so say you have a whole house to declutter, the way to help yourself there is to just make the project so, like, don't try to do everything, organize everything, figure it all out. You've got to, there's this idea that everything has to be all organized and figured out before you just do one little piece. When in fact, if you just do one little piece, what happens is that's the momentum of starting, and the momentum of starting actually helps you continue and be more motivated to do more. So dial it down. So my first thought regarding starting is just to go ahead and dial that down into a manageable chunk. And sometimes I'll say the first step can be as small as you need it to be. And even if it's just a pavement change, like a threshold in your mind that you are going over, one piece of paper, for example, to move, two pieces of paper to move. I'm running a group right now. We're calling ourselves the Goldilocks Goal Getters, meaning not too big, not too small, just right. But the air is to be smaller on our goals than bigger, because what happens is when we have bigger goals, they don't get done because they become so overwhelming. So again, number one is starting. Starting is, that could be the hardest part, and that's my thought for you there. Okay. The second thing is to once you do get somewhere with it, is to consistently stick with it and in the short term. Okay. So what I mean by that is, I had a client and she did a declutter of her home office, and then she ended up with a bunch of to-dos, and then that felt overwhelming. How do I do what do I do first? Now I've got all these piles and all these to-dos, but then what do I do with them? And so the answer is, again, make it small, one at a time. Maybe, you spend an hour a day on each of these to-dos. And, what happens is those voices can come in and say, but you'll never finish it. I had somebody I still do have somebody with a backlog of client actions that need to get taken. And this person is still super busy with the work that they're doing day in and day out. So to get through that backlog a little bit at a time almost seems like, you're throwing stones in the tide. And it's not that way. So we want to make sure we go to, like, to use a beach metaphor, you've got the whole beach and you've got the tide, but maybe there's a little pool, right, where the tide has come in and then left some water there, and then it's gone out a bit, and you get to address just that pool right there, and that pool matters, and that pool feels manageable. That's how to do it in the short term. To stick to things in the short term is all about dialing it into a manageable chunk, and then being okay with doing these things one hour a day, or it could be maybe one day a week on a Saturday, something like that. And being okay with the fact that it's not going to be all done all at once. Because if we think like it has to get done all at once, that's all or nothing thinking. And all or nothing thinking is a great way to guarantee that you will fail. Guaranteed. Okay? So allow yourself those small steps, those baby steps. Reward yourself along the way, even though you think you shouldn't get a reward because it's too small of a step. It's actually the opposite thing, doing the small steps and then rewarding yourself, that you will actually get somewhere and start to feel good and gain that momentum. Last but not least, I have a third card here, and that is the long term. So how do you sustain this, for the long term, which is actually, really important. And that is, it's just starting to enlist other people in it. So, because you'll start to believe in yourself, because you'll start to see, hey, I just cleaned out my command central over in my kitchen. A lot of people will have their command central in their kitchen, where they'll have mail, and they'll have, their phone maybe sits there, and maybe they'll have a calendar, and this is kind of for home organization, but everything bleeds into everything else when we're an entrepreneur. So once that's kind of set up, now we can take that success and bring it out, and now we can bring in our family members, we can bring in our colleagues, and we can say, hey, look, I've got this success. Now what about, how do I do my next thing and my next thing and my next thing? And before you know it, in the example I gave before, the whole house needs to be dealt with little bits at a time, every day, every week, every month, giving yourself those prizes, continuing on, asking for help, giving yourself bigger prizes, and being okay when things do fall apart, because it's most likely they will. That's the other thing, is there's this all or nothing thinking that unless I'm done perfectly and it stays this way forever, I may as well not bother. That's all or nothing thinking, and again, that's a great way to guarantee failure. So those are my top 3 tips. Please comment below how you will use those. Going forward, I would love to see you get started with this sometime between now and March 20th, which is the first day of spring, and is in fact the day that I'm thinking I'm going to be moving Wisdom Warriors to. So please comment below what steps you're going to be taking. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.